friend, the convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and maintains that he knew nothing about the sex trafficking of thousands of women and children, as he appears to have his back up against the wall with the world waiting on him to sign off on releasing the Epstein files rather than attempt to convince the world that he respects women. Instead, he's taking a different approach, this tactic of insulting female reporters who dare to ask him questions he doesn't like. Watch.
What did Jeffrey Epstein mean in his emails when he said you knew about the girls?
I know nothing about that. They would have announced that a long time ago. So he dictated a couple of memos to himself. You're going to find out what did he know with respect to Bill Clinton, with respect to the head of Harvard, with respect to all of those people that he knew, including J.P. Morgan shares.
Sir,
Yeah,
if
Jennifer,
there's nothing incriminating in the files, sir, why not acting as a...
Quiet.
Mr. President, why wait for Congress to release the Epstein files? Why not just do it now?
You know, it's not the question that I mind, it's your attitude. I think the license should be taken away from ABC.
Quiet, Piggy. It's your attitude. It's 2025. It's the American president. I'm going to bring in writer and editor for Protect Democracy, Amanda Carpenter. Alex Wagner is still here. I know we're supposed to not be shocked anymore, but Alex was there. I was shocked at the beginning of the hour, and I'm going to fight against not being shocked. I mean, it is shocking to hear any man in the public arena refer to a woman to her face as Piggy and call her out for doing her job and saying, it's not your question, it's your attitude. Amanda, what are you seeing and how are you processing this?
Well, for one, I can tell you something that absolutely has to remain shocking to the American public is that, yes, Trump has demeaned female reporters like he pretty much has consistently done since he's been on the media scene, not just political scene. But the fact that he lectured a female reporter on how to do her job while sitting with the Saudis there who are accused of chopping up a Washington Post journalist, telling her how to do her job, that she's insubordinate, that she shouldn't have a media license while you're aligning yourself with that autocrat in the Oval Office. And we all have to sit there and take that. That is what is shocking. But you're right. I mean, Trump's mistreatment and disrespect for women in particular has been one of his most defining character traits since he's been on the scene. And I want to stress this, not just since he's been on the political scene, right? Like, you can look at the tapes of The Apprentice. You can look at everything he's done in public life since owning the Miss Teen USA pageant. Hi, there's a red flag. And everybody got along with it, right? Like, it was okay. It was funny. He's charming. He's a playboy. That's just how Donald Trump is. It was never acceptable. The things that were being done to young women was never acceptable. It was never funny. Locker room talk was never funny. And so here's the thing that I'm trying to figure out. What changed? What changed between 2016 when we saw grab her by the pee and everybody enable Trump over it and say it's okay, and now, where we get all these votes for the Epstein files, which is good. I mean, this is a positive development. You actually see Republicans maneuvering around Trump and challenging him on this issue when it comes to the mistreatment of young girls. That is good. But I really, I can come up with some explanations about why things have changed now. Like, maybe this is a way for the MAGA people to move past Trump but not challenge MAGA. Maybe that could be it. But there's something bigger going on. Yes, people are standing up for young girls, but I think people are trying to find ways to move past Trump. And this Epstein thing, this has been such a mainstay in American politics. Yes, among the conspiracy right, but this talk has been chattering for a long time. And so now you see people like Lauren Summers stepping down finally from public life, but apparently still teaching classes to young women, telling them that, I'm going to step away from public life, but I'm still going to teach you. So I think we still have a long way to go on this, and I hope we can explore more, and I think more reporting will bear out what are the reasons for this now, and what can we learn that would actually change anything, because we know who Donald Trump is as a figure. So
back with us today is one of Epstein's many survivors who has been out there front and center demanding the release of these files, anti-trafficking advocate and educator Liz Stein. Liz, it's so nice to have you here. This was wholly a survivor-led movement. Here we are. How are you feeling about where things are right now?
I think that right now we are cautiously optimistic. Yesterday brought a lot of surprises that we didn't anticipate, and I think we're just kind of sitting back and waiting to see what the next move is.
You didn't just get the support of 1 or 2 or 3, even a handful of members of Congress. It was near unanimous in both chambers. What does it mean to you, to other survivors, to see such an overwhelming majority stand up and say, we need to do this?
For us, it was enormously validating to see people standing with us. A week ago, we could not have imagined this, right? None of us could have imagined this. And I think that Republican lawmakers, constituents really spoke out and made their voices heard and let them know that they weren't going to stand for anything but transparency. This is a crime, and it's a crime of sex trafficking, and we're really getting distracted because it's been so highly politicized. But I feel like Republicans really looked deep and acted on their conscience instead of what the party was telling them to do, and we really appreciate that.
Of course, all of the information isn't out there, and for you, it's about shining light, getting to the truth, seeking justice and accountability. We are already starting to see some fallout, though, for some high-profile Epstein associates. It came after those emails were just revealed last week by the House Oversight Committee. Larry Summers confirmed today he is resigning from the board at OpenAI after, already saying he's pulled back from public life. Also, Harvard is investigating its ties with him. The New York Times isn't renewing their contract with him. Do you feel there is a real reckoning coming for those involved with Epstein? And is this kind of punishment enough?
Well, we really hope that there's a reckoning coming, because when we are looking at the men who are potentially implicated in this case, we cannot be distracted by their positions of power. They are perpetrators. They're perpetrators of sexual crimes against girls and young women. By our own government's admission, this is a crime that had 1,000 victims. And someone, I wish I remembered who it was, really eloquently put it so succinctly. And they said last night, think of what 1,000 girls is. That is all the girls in your local high school and all the girls in the high school in the town over and in the town over from that. Just to put it in perspective, could we as a society stand by and let a crime that happened to 1,000 victims just go unpunished? I would hope not. And so we need to dial back from these men with positions of power and really focus on the fact that they perpetrated sexual crimes against us, and no one should be above the law just because of the power that they hold.
We know the president ordered an investigation specifically into Democrats mentioned in those Epstein emails, so there is a chance the Justice Department could still withhold some files. Could you stomach a longer delay if it means there's a new investigation?
I think that we don't want this to go on forever and ever and ever, but we want this to be a thorough investigation. And so I think that we're juggling kind of our desire to see resolution with the fact that we really want to see it done right. And so for me, at least personally, I'm willing to wait to have this done properly, but I would also just hope that it would be done also in a timely fashion.
So often we have asked, is anybody thinking about the survivors here as far as how the DOJ has been handling this recently? Last time you spoke, you said you hadn't heard from the DOJ. Has that changed at all since the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan was told to investigate further, to look into the men mentioned in those emails?
I still have not spoken to anyone, and I'm not alone.
Wow. Some of the president's allies have been trying to spin the narrative or downplay all of this. Megyn Kelly went so far as to say about child sexual abuse, quote, there is a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old. How do you stop those misconceptions?
I think that anyone who's using their rational brain can understand that that's a complete falsehood. And even when we look at this legally, I do anti-trafficking work professionally, and no one under the age of 18 can consent to participating in a commercial sex act. It is automatically human trafficking. And so making that distinction between barely legal, what is barely legal? I mean, is your 14-year-old daughter barely legal? It was really hard to wrap our heads around anyone, particularly a woman, saying things like that.
A mother. I have a 14-year-old child. It's a boy, not a girl, but he's a boy. Like, I can't even think of him in the same light as an adult. What's your message now, just as you look forward, as you are speaking from your heart to fellow survivors who have been fighting so hard for this day and on the cusp of really having the truth all out there? What's your message?
I think that we have a responsibility as survivors of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. We've been thrust into the public eye, and so we have really brought sex trafficking into the mainstream conversation. And so when I think of my younger self and when I think of other survivors out there who maybe don't feel comfortable being as public, survivors of other perpetrators, I always say that if I could tell them anything, I would tell them to tell someone. And if that person doesn't listen, tell someone else, and just keep telling until someone listens. And even if nobody listens, be proud of yourself because you were brave enough to sit in your uncomfortable truth when other people weren't. And so the responsibility that we have being in the spotlight is really to show other survivors that what happened to you matters, and you should not have to live in silence or in darkness because of what was done to you.
I am sure those words are touching some hearts today, and people who are listening. Liz Stein, you speak so eloquently. Thank you very much for lending your voice and being with us.
The authoritarian mirror. I think the scariest thing about Trump isn't what he did, it's what he proved. He proved how easy it is to break a country when you make people choose between truth and belonging. He proved that if you're loud enough, you can drown out facts. And he proved that millions will follow you not because they believe in you, but because you make them feel seen in their anger. He didn't invent cruelty, he just made it fashionable again. He made people proud of the worst parts of themselves. The insults, the lies, the mocking, it wasn't politics anymore. It was an identity. And when the system tried to stop him, the courts, the press, the voters, he turned their resistance into proof of persecution. That's what makes him dangerous. Not his power, but his ability to convince others they're powerless without him. He showed every aspiring strongman on earth that democracy doesn't need to be destroyed. It just needs to be mocked until it collapses on its own. And when that happens, we won't need another Trump, because we'll already be living in his aftermath. Maybe that's Trump's true legacy. Not his buildings, not his rallies, not his wealth, but the lesson he left behind. That democracy doesn't die in darkness. It dies in daylight, cheered on by people who think they're saving it. The next time the crowd chants for strength over truth or loyalty over law, they won't be cheering for Trump. They'll be cheering for the idea he left behind, that power is its own morality. And that's the danger that lingers.